Do you have perfect peace?
No, I wouldn't say perfect. No, I don't think I'll ever achieve perfection
Why do you think that?
because no isn't that not the idea of Christ? Is that the only perfect person was Christ?
No. Christ's idea is for you to be perfect as he is perfect.
Right.
And so his idea is for you to overcome not being perfect and be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. Why don't you have perfect peace? Well, no, but why do you believe that you cannot have perfect peace?
Because I think we all still are going to sin in some form or another. And correct me, you know more about this, so tell me if I'm wrong about this, but I thought that was kind of the idea of Christianity is that he's the ideal that, yeah, you're right, that's the target we're striving for. But that's why we're constantly praying in the acknowledgement that even though we can't achieve perfection, it's still trying to reach it, even though you know you can't achieve it. And I think there's something really interesting in that dynamic.
What's the purpose of trying to achieve something that you don't believe is possible?
Right. That's the spiritual idea.
What?
I think that's the really interesting dynamic here because there are some battles that are worth fighting even when you don't think you can win, even if it looks hopeless. So, okay, George Washington crossing the Delaware, right? That he crossed that river, they thought the battle was over. So I would turn that back on you, say, why, George Washington, why would you cross the river with the last of your army if you don't think you can win this war? Everyone's telling you the war is already lost. Why do that? It's not logical. But doing that is what saved him, saved them, and saved this country. Had he not crossed that river that night when everyone thought it was lost, we wouldn't have a country. It's the same thing.
But why would you try to achieve perfection if you don't think it's possible? Why reach for something that is not possible to become or have? That doesn't make sense.
In this exactly, it's so when did
Well,
exactly?
Christ came, the Son.
Because sometimes we can't just pursue logic. Because if George Washington had just said, "Well, this doesn't make sense. What's the we have no hope of winning, so why try?" Then we wouldn't have a country. But I think because in those moments, that's when God reaches down and makes a difference. He recognizes you're willing to do something. It's the self-sacrificial idea as well, carrying your cross, the sacrifice. My belief is that in those moments, he acknowledges that this guy's going almost to his metaphorical death, like fighting a battle where there's no hope of winning. And that's where divine intervention appears.
Meaning what?
It could mean many things. In that example, it meant the turning of the tide of the war. Churchill's example, it meant imbuing the people with the fighting spirit that resided in them spiritually, the voice of God.
And so
for me, it could mean being a better and better man, even though I know myself well enough to know that every thought of every day is not going to be pure. Every interaction is not going to be pure, but I can still strive for it. Because what's the alternative? The perfection.
But it doesn't make common sense or logical sense that you will even make an attempt to strive for something that you don't believe is possible.
Well, that's where it's not always about, it's when illogical behavior saves you. That's where spirituality resides.
Illogical behavior cannot save you.
I disagree.
Illogical
I think that's exactly what saved the British people against Hitler, and I think that's what formed our country.
Illogical behavior?
Was it logical for George Washington to cross that river when he genuinely believed they had no hope of winning and they were just going to their deaths? Is that logical?
Yes.
Why?
Because he had something that was leading him that caused him to continue until
So could I not say the same thing about my pursuit of perfection?
Not if on one hand you don't believe it's possible. George Washington believed that it was possible, so he went and did it anyway, right? But you don't believe that it's possible to have perfect peace. And so you're reaching for something that you don't believe.
We're talking about perfect peace. I get what you're, perfection, because I thought the ideal of like the only perfect, pure being would be Christ.
Why'd you
right?
think that?
He's the Son of God. That would be God on earth. If you achieve perfect, anything short of God on earth would not be perfect.
But aren't you a son of God?
Right.
So why do you believe you can't have perfect peace then? If the
Now
Son
we're talking
Jesus Christ
about-
had it, why can't you have it?
Now we're talking about perfect peace, though. Maybe that was my confusion with what you were saying. What is perfect peace? Then I could answer this.
No, tell me why you believe you can't have it. If you believe, you say you.
Well, I don't know what it is. We have to define it first.
I'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
Do you create your own thoughts? You mentioned thoughts, how they come. Do you create your own thoughts?
I think our subconscious is extremely powerful. That's one of the reasons I think we all have the capacity to. I think like the voice of God is that instinctive. It's often that instinctive feeling that is subconscious that happens without us even realizing it. So there's almost two levels of thought. There's the subconscious and then the conscious. I control the conscious. Right. So I have those. Okay, a beautiful woman walks by you on the street. You might feel attraction without meaning to or wanting to. You feel, but how you respond to that feeling is in your control. Now we're talking about the conscious level. I do have control of that conscious level.
I'm black and slow, so I didn't get that. Do you create your own thoughts?
At the conscious level, do I create my own thoughts?
Yeah.
I control my own. I create some of my thoughts, and I control my thoughts at the conscious level.
Okay, so you create some of your thoughts.
Yes.
Give me an example of a thought that you create.
So when I was fired, every impulse was take these people down and fight back, which many would say would be the logical course of action. But then I think about it, I meditate on it. There's trails near my house where I just walk and walk and walk. My mind was just racing for days, trying to figure out what would be the right thing to do. And in those moments, I pray, and I would say the result of those moments, that is the act of creating a thought. You're pursuing the right answer.
Tell me the step you take, 1, 2, 3, 4, the step you take to create your own thoughts.
I haven't thought about it to that level necessarily. Let's see. The first step is remove emotion, look at it rationally with logic. You have to identify what your ultimate goal is in order to determine the right move on the chessboard. So I would say that would be my first response to that. But then there's also the prayer form of trying to figure out the right move. So then I try and quiet my mind and ego and listen to that voice inside me that I do think resonates a higher power. And I think you can hear it if you're aligned in that way. If you can align, you can hear it, and then you just trust, like you can feel that it's right to not skewer the school publicly. You want to. Fox News will do an article. It would be logical. They have it coming, but it doesn't, for some reason, it doesn't feel right. Now I'm creating a thought process. I'm going to make a different move. And I can't quite tell you the logical reason, but I feel like it's going to play out for the best. And that's the voice of God, I think.
So tell me the steps you take to create a thought. How do you do it? Number 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Oh, I don't know if I can simplify it to 1, 2, 3, but what I just described. So quiet.
But you haven't told me how
ego.
you create thoughts.
Quiet your ego. Identify your goal. Use logic and reason to identify the next move, and be conscious of the reason. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4. Think 5.
And so,
does that work?
Why do you create thoughts that bring you misery?
Because those are often occurring that's when you give in to the subconscious impulses.
No,
the woman walks by you on the street.
Create thoughts. Why do you create thought? Excuse me. Why do you create thought that builds you up? As soon as you build up, you think things are fine. You create some more thoughts that bring you down, and then now you're down, and now you want to go back up again. So you create thought. if you are the creator of your own thoughts, why do you do that to yourself? Why do you create those kind of thoughts for yourself?
Because they often have great utility. So let's go through they often have great utility. So let's go through what you just described, because that's YouTube. So you're on a run, things are going good, and then you do create those thoughts of what's going to happen tomorrow. That negotiation with that other platform that wants the ad reads, they're trying to screw me over. I got to be really careful about that. There's danger. And I often read more into situations from a level of paranoia because I think there is utility in that paranoia. Like the expression oftentimes in these games, it's the paranoid survive, but...
So why do you create a paranoia situation for yourself? That's misery.
If you let it control you, it can lead to misery.
But why do you create... So you're saying that you deliberately create a paranoid situation for yourself?
I think it's me looking at worst case scenarios because, as I described earlier, I am trying to identify the best move on the chessboard and plan for all other eventualities and anticipate what the other opponent is going to do. So you do kind of need to think about what's the worst case scenario. And when you think about the worst case scenario, that can lead to paranoia.
But if you're in control of your own thoughts, why would you create that for yourself?
Because you need to identify what the best move on the chessboard is, and you have to be able to anticipate what your opponent is thinking. You have to think like your enemy, your opponent.
But it doesn't work.
And when you start thinking about like your opponent, that can take you might be dealing with someone who's not balanced, but you still have to figure out what they're doing and what their thought process is. So that's a moment where you're creating thoughts for a strategic reason.
That's amazing.